don't silo the M&A attorney. We talked about the importance of having uh, the accountants on the same page, having the investment banker, a little bit different on the buy side, or having the insurance broker, all those folks. I really think it's important that you keep the attorney in the loop on all aspects of the deal. And because we have to know about it because it's inevitably going to find its way into the document. The four corners of that document are going to guide everything about the transaction. So the more we know from everybody involved, the better we can protect the buyer. On the sell side, get us involved early,
Yeah.
like when the LOI comes in. I
Hmm.
just I've this is how I was taught, and I totally agree with it, and I've seen it play out way too many times. If you get us involved in the letter of intent, we are going to save you on the back end, and uh, you're going to be happier for it. But I get it. You're always worried about getting the attorneys involved too early. This is exactly what we're here for. Help us get it shaped correctly and in the
Hmm.
right direction from the beginning.
Welcome to the How to Buy or Sell a Business Successfully podcast. The concepts discussed in this podcast are for informational purposes only. No attorney client relationship is intended or formed by this podcast. No legal advice is intended in the substance of this podcast. Feel free to check out our website, www.goforemanlaw.com. Enjoy the show and welcome your hosts, Jake Weman and Sam Foreman. Welcome to How to Buy and Sell a Business Successfully podcast. My name is Sam Foreman. I'm the founder of Foreman Law. Our firm is focused on mergers and acquisitions, working with folks buying and selling businesses, and love working with founders, family-owned businesses. One of the best things going on in my life right now is being a dad and getting to drive my son Hayes to school every day. And he is very much into this show called Bat Wheels, which if you don't have small children, you have no idea what I'm talking about, but it's Batman themed. And we listened to the theme song for about 10 minutes on repeat. And it drives me just a little bit crazy, but it makes him so happy. And I love that. And that's one of the best things going on for me right now. My co-host is Jacob Weman.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. My name's Jake Weman. My wife and I are the proud owners of Orange Theory Fitness here in Wichita, and also a fractional business development executive, working with companies, helping them drive their top line revenue. Work with a company out of Oklahoma City, an investment bank called Infinity Capital, and then also I work with I have the fortunate time to work with my family's company, Citywide Facility Solutions, helping them with their business development efforts too as well. Wear a lot of hats, but I love every one of them. Um, the best thing happened in my life is kind of on the theme of driving your kids to school. So when my kids are in my car, I have a 10-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and it's more the 4 and 2-year-old. They love the Disney Station,
Mm.
and Disney Station is constantly on in my car. And it's Moana, it's Frozen, it's
Mm-hmm.
you name it, it's on our thing, and they sing it. They don't know the words, but they sing it, and it's
Oh man,
hilarious. And
God bless you,
so
brother.
yeah, no, it's a lot of fun because it brings me back to they like the old school songs too, which is a lot of fun. Is that's out there.
No,
But
that's
yeah,
great.
we're excited today to be hosted. Not ho We are hosting Neil Miller. He is out of Kansas City. Joining us. We're here, Wichita. He's in KC. Power of technology. We can have a podcast like this, which is awesome. He's an M&A attorney up there. But I won't steal your thunder. So I'll let you kind of do an introduction of yourself.
Sure. Thank you guys for having me on today. It's Neil Miller. I'm a partner with the law firm of QTech Rock here in Kansas City. We have 19 offices throughout the country, so I'm lucky to be part of this one here in Kansas City. A lot of my time is spent working with entrepreneurs and other business owners and founders in M&A and just their overall legal needs. In terms of what I've got going on in my life that is great right now, I was going to say how school's about out. So all my kids are moving on to another grade, and all three of my girls will be in one school together next year. But Jake, you got me thinking. I just am trying out a Paramount Plus
Yeah.
subscription,
Yep.
and I've discovered all of the old Nickelodeon shows that I grew up
Oh,
watching.
no way.
Yes. What was your favorite?
I loved Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Okay.
I have been showing my girls Salute Your Shorts. I just was showing them Legends of the Hidden Temple.
Yeah.
It did again. they're actually interested in it. So I
Oh,
would,
that's cool.
that's a big thing going on in my life is
Oh, it's
rediscover.
great.
Well, and what a cool deal that they're interested in that as well, and getting to kind of share that experience with them.
Yeah. I will say, looking at the video quality back then compared to now, that's
Question: Are any of those shows, is the recording in? Does it have the black bars on the side, or does it have black bars on the top of the
Oh
bottom?
man.
I think it's been top and bottom, but I have to go pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
when it's old school and that it really needed to be cleaned up to be,
Yeah.
Yep.
you know,
I think
visible.
that's
So
how we
yeah,
know we're old now is when, we're showing our kids like what life used to be.
right. I keep waiting for them to say, "This is not a clear image. What is going on?" Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's how we watched
That's what
everything.
it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
My favorite is like watching something that I have this strong emotional connection to from when I was a kid and watching it as an adult, and just that like weird feeling of like this sucks. Like I don't know if you guys ever have that when you watch it. Like this is terrible. Like this is so bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll move on. I'll move on from talking about pop culture here. I promise. We'll work some more in later when we have our first ever slime time segment. Neil, we recruited somebody at your office. No, I'm just
I know.
kidding.
Nickelodeon
I'm
just closed too.
just looking around at
Yeah,
top to make sure
Yeah.
there's
yeah.
nobody up there.
Jason, can we AI that in later?
Yeah, the slime time.
Double Dare. That was the other show.
The
Double
double
Dare.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's the slime.
There we go. For slime or no slime,
Yeah.
what does subsection such and such of tax code provision? Yeah, no. Okay, well let's actually talk about things that are related to buying and selling a business. Unless your
Sure.
business is Nickelodeon, we'll move on. But if your business is Nickelodeon and you would like to hire Neil, please reach out and do so.
Nickelodeon closed.
Yeah. Do you already represent Nickelodeon? I assume the answer is yes. Okay. Bucket
No,
list
just a
item.
big fan.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Awesome, awesome. Well, Neil. One of the things that I think is really helpful for folks when they're starting looking at whether it's buying or selling a business is kind of bringing in the right mindset. And a lot of folks that we deal with, and I'm sure the same is true for you, are buying or selling a business for the first time. And so they're brand new to everything. And one of the things we observe often is that people are coming in with an assumption that, whether they realize it or not, that sort of the value that can be created through the deal process is already somewhat fixed. And so they just want a team to kind of come in and be, more reactionary, more responsive as opposed to more proactive, and just kind of run a checklist or, fill in the blanks on their forms or whatever it is. And they're not undervaluing the process, but they just don't know from the client perspective because they haven't been through it before, how to sort of mentally frame up this stuff. And so how do you engage with clients on that to help them make sure that they have, thought through things and that they're thinking about, the deal process as something that creates or destroys value depending on how it's handled, as opposed to, something that you just kind of come in and run a checklist for?
Yeah. Good question. And you're probably going to hear this from me several times throughout our conversation today. That value creation starts from the very beginning at the letter
Hmm.
of intent term sheet
Yeah.
stage. If we're involved, whether it's us or any M&A attorney, I find that helps dramatically because you're setting a tone early on. And frankly, you're getting some points done and finished out before you get to the negotiation stage of the overall purchase agreement. So I think that sets a value, it shows the value early and often. But beyond that, what I often explain is, yes, we are scriveners at the end of the day, the M&A lawyers. We're going to draft the documents, we're going to review that, negotiate it, but we can be so much more than that.
Hmm.
And that's why I love working in M&A is the opportunities I get to be a full-on advisor to clients throughout the
Hmm.
process, because it's not just, you know, reading the English language in the document, sometimes Latin, but reading through that and explaining what it means. It's the fact that we can help them through the process and what they
Hmm.
can expect.
Right.
because there's a rhythm and cadence to it. And I'm sure you've been a part of these deals, Sam. I mean, when that's off, it
Right.
just the deal can drag on, and time
Right.
is the enemy of all deals. So
Right.
I think it's just helping them through that process, showing them that they can
Right.
rely on us to walk them through the
Right.
entirety.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, when you look at the LOI and you look at how it frames up value, if you were to think about sort of the overall deal process in terms of, where the dollars work the hardest for the client, for example, and how much value is created, how do you feel like you compare the value that's created through a really good LOI process versus a more execution oriented process,
Mhm.
like the actual, purchase agreements, et
Yep.
cetera?
Yeah. So inevitably, you're looking at that letter of intent and you're focused on the number, the purchase
Hmm.
price. And
Right.
when you sign that letter of intent, maybe you didn't have counsel involved. I find that that number is going to get chipped away as you
Yeah.
get into the purchase agreement,
Right.
whether it's an
Right.
escrow or a holdback or whatever may come up.
Right.
And, and amongst other points that can impact the bottom line. And I find that when we're there at the letter of intent stage, we can help protect against that and put some
Mm.
guardrails around it early
Yeah.
versus coming into the purchase agreement, LOI has already been signed. And, they probably agreed to something that we said, maybe you didn't mean to agree to that back then. It's hard to undo that.
Right.
The LOI, it's not binding, so to speak, but we say it's got a strong moral persuasion.
Yeah.
It's very
100%.
hard to get them off that point once they've
Yeah.
had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of on that, Tatum, you're talking really about, the deal team that's involved with that and how a buyer, or I mean, how a seller surrounds themselves. So, what impact does the strategic alignment and mindset of the deal team really have on the outcome of a transaction? I mean, that's what you're talking about here is really
Mhm.
impact and what that can have for the seller.
Yeah. So, look, in terms of the team, you have the M&A attorney, or you should. Hopefully, you have an accountant. You may or may not have an investment banker or a business broker, but all those folks should be involved in some form or fashion and have alignment. But I think where you find the real value in that is, on the front end. If you've got someone who is thinking about going to market and selling, and they've got an investment banker, well, they're telling them what they care about, what's important to them. Sure, it's the purchase price and the dollars, but also, hey, what's going to happen to my employees after I
Mm-hmm.
close? About this, that, or the other. We often tell them also talk to your accountant and find out what's the bottom line. If you run it through taxes that you would
Mm-hmm.
presumably owe under stock structure, equity structure, or an asset structure, are you a seller at this amount or that amount? And if we go
100%.
into it and we don't know what the number is that presumably you like the number in the letter of intent, but if you tell me, hey, this is at a premium, or no, I actually think I'm selling this at the low end, that's going to help guide us through the negotiation process and align all the parties. Because, for example, if it's a premium, we're probably going to give on more points and just be amenable to some of
Right.
the pushback. But if you think it's at a discount, okay, then we really got to sharpen our
Right.
pencil
Right.
and put some guardrails around
Yeah.
things.
And knowing that information early in the process, I think helps to, frame that up and set expectations so that the parties are aligned that, like if it is at a steep discount or whatever, being able to just kind of spell that out in the LOI or whatever that, hey,
Right.
we're not going to be giving typical reps and warranties or indemnities, and maybe we're going to, spell out that, hey, except for fundamental reps and warranties, we're going to have a 6 month expiration or whatever it is because we're making such a concession. We're assigning value to it. But if you don't have that input from your team early enough in the process, then it's harder to come back and you're not going to get in as good a spot. Or it's going to cost you a lot more to get there. And it's not just the direct dollars of like, hey, I've got to pay my team to work harder to get there. Sometimes you've got to trade other pieces of value, and that's where the real expense is you might have to trade purchase price. Like, hey, I got to come down a little bit more. Or I've got to, make some other concession that I really didn't want to have to. And a lot of times those individual items can, eclipse the entire amount of what you're spending on your deal team. I mean, in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And Great points. And just kind of close a loop on what Jake was asking. If your full assortment, your full team of advisors,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't all know these things, then we're going to be fragmented. And
Yeah.
we may be something forward that the banker says, hey, that's not a big deal. They're not worried about that point or another. But if we're all aligned and we know the collective interests of our client, that really streamlines things. And it
Mm-hmm.
also helps just to
Yeah.
give bounce ideas off somebody else and you know, more than anything, get a second opinion on some things.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up earlier helping people think through things like, hey, what happens to your employees and other things like that. Because I think there's a tendency for some advisors who maybe don't spend enough time in the M&A space or who have just one sort of viewpoint of it to lose sight of, how much, especially in small businesses or lower middle market businesses that are founder led or family business owned, that um, just how much of the personal side of things is invested in this. And you don't want to be surprised with, um, finding out that, your family's name that's on that business is now going to be associated with something that's run in a way that you don't really like. Or that your employees are just going to all be fired by that PE buyer that really just wanted your customer relationships and they're going to export all the value out of that community to somewhere else. Getting that, having that intentionality, somebody that's really going to take the time to get to know you like Neil will, and develop that relationship that creates that alignment, really helps to prioritize the things that matter most. And it's not just money. I mean, money's important. For a lot of us, it has to be a minimum number, otherwise there's not a deal. But it's so much. It's so much more than that. Because these are real people in the real world. They're not robots yet. Um, maybe someday our
Yeah,
AI overlords will become our clients, but uh, until then. But
until then.
yeah. What are some of the things that you do to kind of engage with clients to help them really understand what their priorities are if they haven't been able to articulate those yet and really understand the personal side of the deal process?
Yeah. So it often takes a turn of the purchase agreement to get to that point, and you kind of peel back the
Mm.
onion a bit. And because so much of what we do, it's not just what's on paper, it's what's not
Mm-hmm.
on paper, what's not in the document. And I'll see that from time to time on the sell side. I'll say, hey, there's nothing here about what's going to happen to employees. Is that important to you? Or, whatever I call it kind of legacy considerations, what you care about after you sell the company. It's not yours anymore. You don't get to call the shots, but is there anything else you really care about? Whether it's, as you said, the name of the company going forward. Those things just kind of get ferreted out after a turn of the purchase agreement or two. And you really, you know, I would say the real way I dig that out is just having the personal conversation with the client, and not looking at us as a transactional relationship, but understanding what makes them tick, what helped them get to that point
Mm-hmm.
where they're selling their company. And then you can learn, hey, this is really important. They've got, employees that they've been with the company for a long time and they don't want them to be let go the moment they close. So
Mm-hmm.
it takes a little bit of time and really just understanding that it's not always about the billable hour. I'm talking, as you said, humans, just
Mm-hmm.
human to human here. What makes you tick? What do you care about besides the dollar that you're seeing in the agreement?
Mhm.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, so when kind of talking in, and as we kind of go down this path, what do you see as the most missed opportunities when creating value during a deal? I mean, as you're working with your client, where do you see that there have been missed opportunities as they go through that process?
Yeah. Uh, Again, the letter of intent, inevitably, if they, when we certainly sell side, I'll say that. On the sell side, if you've already signed the letter of intent and have not consulted, an M&A attorney and your accountant, there's a lot of missed opportunity there because that's your time to ask for things up front because you might find out once you get the purchase agreement, you may say, hey, I didn't know they include that term. I'm not a seller now. And now you've already given some exclusivity, 60, 90 days, and you're kind of locked
Hmm.
down. So that's always a big missed opportunity. And I tell people it's more important to me to come to me with the letter of intent, I'm more focused on getting that set up correctly than I am, say, just say this, starting to bill. I mean it. I tell folks all the time, I want to make sure you've got it set the right way in the letter of
Mm-hmm.
intent. And I'm happy to give some time to help you get to that point because I know it helps streamline the process and pays dividends in the long run. So that's often a big missed opportunity. Aside from that, Jake and Sam, I would say it's just not leaning on your advisors. You look, business owners are living with risk every day. I mean, Jake, you know that running your businesses, and Sam having your own firm. I mean, you've got your own risks you're living with every day. And I appreciate that about our clients and tell them we're going to give practical advice because you know that this is not a risk-free transaction. But there's a lot of things we can still help with to put guardrails and parameters around those risks
Mm-hmm.
after you close. And aside from that, you got to run your business. So put the issues on us. Let us own the
Mm-hmm.
problems for you and run it to ground.
Yeah.
And that to me, I think is often a missed opportunity. They try to wear too many hats
Yeah.
instead of leaning on
Yeah.
us.
And Neil, when you think about, I mean, like tacking onto that comment you just made about, hey, they've got to run their business. If you've got a sell side client, for example, that is diverting a lot of their time and attention to the sale process and away from, successfully running operations, what kind of impact can that have on the business?
Yeah, we call it the bad quarter. I mean, we
Mm.
say
Mhm.
we,
I
you know,
love that term, by the
Bad
way. Can I
quarter.
start
Yeah.
using that? I will provide you attribution. Yeah.
Yeah.
sure, please do.
Yeah.
The bad quarter, deals. Look, we're always trying to get deals done efficiently and a timely basis. I'd say these days it's going a little bit longer than it used to, and but if you take your eye off the ball, you're going to have that bad quarter, and then all of a sudden you're opening the door for potential renegotiation of the price
Mm-hmm.
because the financials start to become a little stale. Hey, we relied on these financials from 3 months ago, and now we got to look at these more recent ones, and it hasn't been going as well. So that can have a dramatic impact. And it just, again, you're taking your eye off what it is you do, which is owning and running your business. Let
Mm-hmm.
us help you with the process of selling it and allowing you to focus on that.
Yeah. No, I think that's such helpful advice. I mean, we've got some folks we've been talking to that have been looking at a business where the sell side did exactly what you just described. And I don't know if there's any kind of deal there anymore because operations and financial performance was impacted so substantially, which says a lot about the business
Mhm.
because of seller controllable behavior during the deal process. And I mean it's such a sad thing to see, regardless of which side you're on. You're disappointed for your client as a buyer. You're grateful that they didn't close with that. But I mean, there's a mutual missed opportunity there whenever that happens. There wasn't a lot of value left, based on those changes in performance, and there wasn't a lot of value to be exchanged. And when you get good advice and you're able to focus during the deal process, you can really achieve some great results. And when you don't, you might be surprised with the outcomes, and hopefully not. We don't want that for anybody, but that's just the truth of what happens. It's pretty straightforward. If your business requires certain inputs in order to perform, and you divert those inputs to other places, you're probably not going to get the same results that you had before. Um, you know, don't stop spending money on marketing. Don't stop driving that sales pipeline. Make it as full as you can. I guarantee you, if my clients are looking at a business, one of the first things I'm asking is like, how full is that sales pipeline? Like, how much of that's coming over here? Because it matters, man. And yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Let me beat that drum a little bit more some other time. But
We're saying the same things. It's,
yeah.
Jake and Sam here. Thank you for joining us. If you find this content helpful, please like, subscribe, share it with a friend, and especially leave us a 5-star review on Spotify or iTunes. Really helps us out a lot.
Yeah, 1 star, it's on Sam.
Yeah, it's definitely on me.
yeah. But again, it's why we're here and the importance of assembling your team of
Mhm.
advisors to help shoulder that load for you.
Yeah. Neil, what sort of deal terms are you seeing right now that are causing the biggest issues and opportunities for buyers and sellers?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this leading up, and I really say there's three areas that I consistently see as being issues. One, always and forever, I think, is going to be indemnification. Uh, Sam, I'm sure you've heard this. I mean, it's on the sell side, again, you live with the risk every day, and you don't even know they're out there. But hey, if something comes up, that that risk, that issue falls on you. But that all gets put under the microscope once you're through the sales process and you're having to put together disclosure schedules and make reps and warranties. So, what I always tell clients is our job on the back end is to make sure ways that they can claw back that money through indemnification are airtight. And we do as
Mm-hmm.
much as we can to help with that. But still, you'll have this, the special indemnity, the standalone issue that crops up and someone says, I didn't even think that was an issue, but the buyer gets to call the shots on that. So I consistently see that become an issue. You don't think you're going to need much in the way of indemnification, your watch, our watch, but again, something pops up during due diligence and becomes hotly contested. So that's one I typically see. The other one would be net working capital adjustments.
Hmm.
Mm.
Look,
Are
we
those important?
the fact that you're saying it that way,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. Tell us.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted. Please
no,
proceed. Yeah.
no, it's often in my experience one of the last things to get resolved. It's always in the purchase agreement. You've got it bracketed. Everyone knows they got to deal with it. But I'm always stressing to try to get to that sooner, not later,
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
because it can be used as a purchase price adjustment mechanism on the back end, but it's real dollars and cents.
Yeah.
You know, you guys know that
100%.
it's either what are we putting in escrow, and then okay, how do we calculate the net working capital
Right.
to run the business? And inevitably, they have a little bit of disagreement on what the
Mm-hmm.
inputs and outputs are. And but again, once you've closed and you get into that post closing period, uh, you'll they're going to true it up,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes you'll see that they come back and say, yeah, we've got a little bit of discrepancy. So I'm always trying to get folks to focus on that,
Yeah.
knowing there's a lot of other things going on in
Right.
the deal. But then, and I'd be curious to hear what you think on this, Sam. I often try to tell them to take a conservative approach on the sell side. Just, hey, it's great if, obviously you want to be as close as you can to that target, but you want to avoid the idea that they're going to have to go scrape some of the escrow, the net working
Hmm.
capital escrow if it's short. So I'm always just trying to set expectations of being a
Yeah.
little bit conservative, so you're not having to come out of pocket or lose that after
Hmm.
closing.
Yeah, I like that approach, the setting conservative expectations on things. I mean, I like encouraging folks to think about as they're calculating that, are there other factors that are going on where you need to and have a vested interest in making sure that the buyer has plenty of working capital involved. Like if you've got seller financing involved, you don't want to cash starve that business by driving that as low as you possibly can. um I mean, also thinking about like, hey, how does that fit in with your buyer's success post closing? Because if your buyer is busy and making money and they're happy, they're probably not chasing indemnity claims. They're probably not going around hunting for like, how can I clear that deductible and and send that bill over and scrape that escrow. But I mean, back to kind of framing up value at the LOI stage. I mean, the more you can understand and help your team understand at that point, any sort of normalization that needs to occur, or adjustments that need to occur. Like, a lot of small business owners, they carry cash in the business that's completely unnecessary. And if unnecessary for maintaining operations, but if your LOI says trailing 12 months and it doesn't acknowledge that, hey, we've got an extra $500,000 of cash there, that might be something that you have to then renegotiate and try to persuade your buyer out of. And they may have built their purchase price and their whole, financial model around things that now aren't going to exist. And maybe you could have gotten a fairer price and still kept some of that cash just by having good input at the front end. But
Right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things to think about because there are a lot of moving pieces, but those are all things that you can position well if you get the right input,
Right.
especially early on in the process.
Right. And the analogy I often use, and I'm sure you use the same, it's no different than buying a car. When you take it off the lot, you expect the tank to be full of gasoline. Well, it's the
Yeah,
same thing for buyers when they buy the business. They
right,
expect the tank to be full, and they
right,
don't want to put more cash infusion in there. So
right,
Mhm.
it's a critical component of deals,
right.
and yet it just consistently is. It's really there at the finish line that people start
Yeah.
focusing on it.
How do you talk to folks? I mean, working capital, I love that you brought it up. It is such a critical point. I mean, how do you talk to folks when they're looking at, okay, well, purchase price is, 10 million bucks, but the seller's going to keep the cash and the AR. Um, how do you help folks think through that and talk through that from a working capital and a purchase price perspective?
Yeah, so again, to beat the drum on the letter of intent, I try to flush that out early on, at least with
Mm-hmm.
cash. When I
Yeah.
see cash free, debt free, I'm stressing that means you get to keep the cash.
Mm-hmm.
That's yours, seller. Debt free,
Right.
everyone understands that. But the cash free, I often run into that people saying, well, I didn't really know that meant that you get to keep all the cash that's in the account. But if I set that up early in the letter of intent, it helps us on the networking capital negotiations because usually the buyer will say, "Hey, I know it's cash free, but we need to keep a little bit in the business, just a
Mm-hmm.
little bit extra cash for things."
Right.
But now we've got a leg up because we said, "Oh, the letter of intent said cash free,
Mhm.
so we can work with you on a proper cash
Right.
to leave cash in the business, but we have a little more
Yeah.
leverage there."
Right.
So
Right.
that's how I often try to help with it.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I like the gas, tank full of gas analogy, and I think it's a really good one. Because if you're a buyer or you're a seller and you're looking at a business valuation that says that the business is worth 10 million bucks, and then one of the parties wants to take out $700,000 worth of cash and $800,000 worth of accounts receivable, is that business still worth $10 million?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a question you have to answer for yourself. I think usually the answer I'd encourage clients to come to is, well, if the valuation is or the question is the valuation based on having that working capital included or not?
Mm.
Because you've ultimately, for most folks, you've either got to justify it to investors or you got to justify it to a bank, and they're going to want to know where that money's coming from. And if you're taking all that liquid assets out, you're going to have to go to the gas station and fill up the tank. And so did your purchase price then just become not 10 million, but now I've got to go get, 1.5 million dollars of liquidity
Mhm.
to pop in there. And now is my math around 11.5 million instead of
Yeah.
10 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's and this is again go back to like our original conversation about around deal team. I mean, a lot of things that you're talking about right now, these sellers don't know that. I mean, I was engaging with a potential client a couple weeks ago, and they had an offer on the table, big offer, but the conversation networking, well, the networking capital got brought up by one of my colleagues, and they were like, "What's that?" And it was just this. I mean, they were a great company and had
Mm-hmm.
done very, very well, but it was one of those conversations that had not been discussed, and they were ones that it was in a need of about, $2 million. And it's like, so that's money. And it was just more of this realization for them of like, oh, like this is why I need to have good counsel. This is why I need to have good advisors around me, and it's again, some of these sellers, they're like, well, I don't want to, I don't have to invest, this much per hour for my attorney, or I don't need to have this investment because they're going to take a percentage of the sale, those sort of things. But when you boil down to it, I mean, the value is created from the team, from that transparency, from that early on, like you said, is crafting that letter of intent or looking at it and giving them the guardrails to be protected. Later on, I don't give you leverage, like you were mentioning too. So it's just so
Yeah.
critical for these sellers, and that's what sellers that we preach this on here is find good advisors, find them, build relationships with them because they're gonna pay their worth tenfold when you engage with them.
And I will say this is a PSA for uh, backing accountants and investment bankers because
Yeah.
look, we lawyers, we're not accountants. issues. And we
Mm-hmm.
know enough about networking capital to be dangerous and to point out the issues. But I love when I've got a great accounting team involved, great investment banker, because they really can dig in on the
Mm-hmm.
numbers there and
Hmm.
help them position the networking capital well. We just can be there and say, hey, this is what the document's saying.
Yeah.
Does that align with how you historically
Yep.
calculate? So yeah, it's absolutely it's an endorsement for why you need a full team.
Yeah. And if you're listening and you're thinking about that deal process that might be coming up, I mean, I really encourage folks to think about it a couple years in advance and start thinking about building your deal team before you need them. You know, reach out to somebody like Neil, not somebody like Neil. Reach out to Neil. Let me put it that way. Reach out to Neil. Reach out to Jacob. Reach out to whoever it is that you're thinking about having on your team, and just kind of take a little time to get to know them. You know, the relational side of things is going to serve you very well. You know, make sure people are a fit, and have that interview process kind of positioned before you're ready to start, you know, really preparing for sale, for example, or really preparing on the acquisition side of things. Because if you put yourself in a spot where it's like, hey, I've got to sell my business and it's got to happen in a short amount of time, you know, you may not have the luxury of developing a relationship, interviewing as many people to really find that right fit, just because of the time constraints. Uh, Neil, one of the questions I've got for you is um, thinking about how um, the time component plays into things. And uh, I'm sure you've seen this a lot of times where people come to you with the LOI, either, "Hey, I just got this offer, help me review it, help me think about it," or, "Hey, I just submitted this LOI to somebody. Can you, that I wrote myself. Can you help me with it now?" Whether it's on the buy side or the sell side, when is a good timeline for people to kind of think about? Let's start with the sell side. When is a good timeline for people to think about really having those initial conversations with, with you and other parts of their deal team to really kind of get ready for the process?
Uh, Obviously, if you've been thinking about going to market and sell, you know, a year in advance is helpful, but we know that's not realistic. Uh, when someone's been having conversations with a potential buyer, but they don't yet have the LOI, I'll often get a call during that period.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, they'll say, I'm kind of doing my own due diligence, trying to find M&A counsel. I don't have any documentation yet, but I'm told something's forthcoming. That's a great time to get counsel involved because we can be
Mm-hmm.
there right when they receive that draft, or we get it shortly thereafter, or we get it the day before, that arbitrary deadline set forth, and they say, "Hey, can you take a look
Yep.
at this?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so long as you get us involved before you've put your name, your signature on that letter of intent, it's an excellent time because
Mm-hmm.
we will meet your deadline, or we'll get involved and say, hey, let's just let them know we need 24 hours. But I say one of the things our team prides itself on is responsiveness, but also just knowing the urgency to these things. And you got to strike while the iron's hot. So
Mm-hmm.
when they come to us, we're in a position to turn those and know they got to be turned quickly because people will lose interest if it's taking weeks at a time to get to it.
Yeah, no, that's great. If you've got somebody that's thinking about, hey, I'm, not really sure where I'm at from a value perspective. I know I want to sell, um, and they really want to think about understanding the value of their business and how to change it, and maybe
Mhm.
change their outcome, optimize their results. Yeah, when is a good time for them to start thinking about, having conversations with experienced M&A counsel and really building their deal team around sort of a value transformation process, if that makes sense, kind of a sale prep process.
Yeah, I mean that I think definitely happens years in advance. But a lot of
Hmm.
times, if we're involved with someone who is ahead of the game and is a year or
Hmm.
two or half 6 months away from a transaction, they probably have an investment banker involved.
Hmm.
And again, another shout out to them. I mean, that's a huge value creation in and of itself because they're helping them with that internal due diligence. Uh, when they come to us, we may get involved because they've got, some organizational matter that they need some cleanup with in their org docs. Or hey, they're going to get ready for sale, but there's I don't know, they've got an owner that's wanting to get out before then and whatnot. I mean, that's when we get involved early, but a lot of times they'll say their value's already baked by the time they get to us.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got a lot of longstanding institutional clients, and they'll tell us when they're thinking about going to market, and we'll start thinking in advance of that, and just making sure you have your house in order. I mean, it's again, thinking about the sale of a house, not exactly like selling a business, but if you got a bad roof and it's dated, 20 years, you might need to get a new one before you sell, or
Mm-hmm.
you got a plan to pay the buyer for that. So
Mhm.
same kind of thing with a business.
Yeah.
If you got some holes and blemishes,
Yeah.
we can try to help clean that up. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be based on their actual numbers. How are their revenues and whatnot, and we're not always a part of that.
Sure, sure. No, that's helpful. Well, we've got a question from our audience. Uh, uh, Man, I wish I could say this was a live taped studio audience. Someday we'll do one of those. But for now, these are sourced through LinkedIn. So Matt Jones asks, what happens if a seller breaches a rep and warranty and it gets discovered months past closing?
Yeah. So one, in my practice, in my world at QTech Rock, I'm blessed to have great colleagues, and I will run and get one of my litigation partners involved just to help me think through where
Mm,
this could go. But what often happens is you'll get a notice. Buyer will send you a nice letter saying, "Hey, we're aware of this claim, and as you know, there's either indemnity escrow or the survival period of that rep has not terminated yet. It's still alive." So we'll get the letter, and then we'll talk about it and say, "Well, do we really think that happened on our watch, or is it something that happened later?" But you kind of have a back and forth of exchanging some letters between attorneys. And honestly, what I tend to see is folks come to a resolution between business parties rather than getting to the point of litigation. Not always the case, but I think folks generally understand that we can figure this out as business parties. We tried to allocate for the risk before closing. Inevitably, there was something we didn't know about. It came up, happened on our watch. All right, how do we work this out and get it resolved? And again, that's if you've got an indemnity escrow, you're likely tapping that, or maybe you've got rep and warranty insurance, and you
mm-hmm.
turn around and say, "Okay, we met the deductible. Now we're going to the rep and warranty carrier." By the way, that's a great tool when there is rep and warranty insurance because it takes the fight and the argument from the
Mm-hmm.
business parties and moves it to the insurance carrier. But
Yeah.
yeah, occasionally it happens. I will say, in my experience, you often find that those claims happen pretty quickly after closing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as you know, I mean, word gets out about a sale of the company. That's when things come to light. Someone somewhere felt like they were wronged, and now they see that there was a sale, and maybe somebody's got some.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
You
that's
become
what
a
ends.
little bit bigger
Yeah.
of a target. Yeah.
On the
That,
reps and
that's
warranty
right.
front, I mean, is there a size of sale that where you or a type of company where you would engage in, buying that insurance? I mean, is there like kind of a staple or a standard out there for that?
In my experience, I've seen it anywhere from 10 million and up. I know that number has gone a little higher, I think, because if there's a rep and warranty broker, they'd say, yeah, you kind of get diminishing returns if you're below a certain number.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm definitely under sub 10 million on a deal, it's not really a thought. It's not cost effective,
Yeah.
but there's certainly some that come in the door, and we know right away. We say, "Are you getting rep and warranty insurance?"
Mm-hmm.
And and again, going back to the letter of intent, if we're on the sell side and there's a certain number plugged in there, I'm telling the client, "Hey, you should ask them if they're going to get rep and warranty insurance."
Mm-hmm.
Then we don't have to worry about a lot of these indemnity points, and just put it on the buyer to go obtain that
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
it's a great tool. I mean, I think it really does streamline negotiations, and it's just extra. I shouldn't say just extra diligence, but it's another set of eyes providing diligence on everything, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think it helps people really unearth any and all concerns and risks.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. What are some of those terms that kind of come up around indemnities that, can help the parties sort of define, how that risk is shared and quantified a little bit, especially if there isn't rep and warranty insurance involved?
Well, of course, the survival period's always
Mm-hmm.
always a big deal, and I think everyone has a pretty good understanding on the general rep and warranty side where it's going to come out. I'll see anywhere from 12 to 24 months, but we really try to stay on the low end of that, of course. Uh, the deductible, always
Mm-hmm.
a big thing. I mean, Sam, I'm sure you go through this in your deals, trying to just stress that the buyer's going to have some skin in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then comes down to, is it, a true deductible, or is it revert back to dollar one, tipping basket? So the deductible is always a big thing. And then trying to set a cap. Those are really the areas where we try our best to put parameters around it so that on the sell side, at least, clients can point to an end date when they don't have to worry about it anymore. Not always the case, but it's hard if they're being told, yeah, this rep and warranty is going to survive for, 15 years because it's fundamental. So they'll say, I got to look over my shoulder for 15 years. Maybe, but you're in the best position to know if
Right.
that fundamental is reached. But on the buy side, it's those same points, but just trying to make them, of course, more buyer favorable, and put more of the onus on the seller. But again, at the end of the day, it all comes out to disclosure, and you've got the standard reps and warranties and breaches of covenants, taxes, but it's the things that are discovered during due diligence that you're really trying to focus on and put some parameters around.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. 100%. Those are great thoughts for folks. Well, Neil, we appreciate your time today. Want to close out by talking about, what is one great tip that you have for buyers and one great tip that you have for sellers, that you'd like them to take away today?
Yeah. And yeah, thank you both for having me on. Enjoy the conversation again. Just honored you had asked me to come on here and chat, and I've loved the opportunity. On the buy side, I've been fortunate. I've worked with some great clients and uh, sophisticated, smart buyers who know exactly what they're after, and they know the process, and that helps a lot. So they don't need a lot of tips, if any. But occasionally, I'd say, look, don't silo the M&A attorney. We talked about the importance of having uh, the accountants on the same page, having the investment banker, a little bit different on the buy side, or having the insurance broker, all those folks. I really think it's important that you keep the attorney in the loop on all aspects of the deal. And because we have to know about it, because it's inevitably going to find its way into the document. The four corners of that document are going to guide everything about the transaction. So the more we know from everybody involved, the better we can protect the buyer. So it would just be don't silo us from everyone else. That would be my tip for buyers. On the sell side, you can probably guess what I'm going to say because I've only brought it up several times. Get us involved early,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
like when the LOI comes in.
Mhm.
I just, I've, this is how I was taught, and I totally agree with it. And I've seen it play out way too many times. If you get us involved in the letter of intent, we are going to save you on the back end, and you're going to be happier for it. But I get it. You're always worried about getting the attorneys involved too early. This is exactly what we're here for. Help us get it shaped correctly and in the right direction from the beginning.
Yeah.
For sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Neil. We appreciate you taking time. One of our big goals here with this podcast is we really want to help business owners have great results in the building of their businesses and buying or selling those, because we know that when great transitions happen, really great things happen for communities, and that's something we're passionate about. We really appreciate you contributing to that effort, and thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Neil.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you for joining us today. For future episodes, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And please check out our website at www.goforemanlaw.com/learning.